Alright guys, we're doing just a little short video about these Nexx Racing conversion threaded teleshock kits for the SCX24. So this teleshock kit comes with the sleeves, well, the Tele sleeves, the threaded tubes with adjustment collars, your springs, and some other springs. Let's see. Those are the 0.45s, and these are the 0.4s. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't know the difference. Looks like these guys might be a little more stiff. So, when you've got this, you just take your stock shocks and you're able to use the parts from them. We got a whole bunch of parts here. And you can basically build a new shock. So you can take your top, take your bottom, get rid of your shock body and your shock shaft and your shock springs. All you need is the top and the bottom. And you're able to thread this back in. See, like so. Oh no, wait, you do use your shock, the shaft. You still use your shock shaft. My bad. But your shock shaft's basically going to go in here. Okay. Maybe it goes this way. There you go. Okay, and now you've got your teleshock, right? And you can put your collar on, your adjustment collar. And we'll go ahead and screw on our bottom piece. So we need our spring first. We'll use these top springs. And now you can screw on your bottom piece. Remember, don't over tighten that. You don't want to strip that out. Okay. And thread on your top piece. Well, be careful when you're threading these on because you are going metal into plastic, so you can cross thread them very easily. Just go slow. Maybe spin them back just a little until you get the threading in there. Oh, and then you can feel it, and then it'll drop in, and then you're good to go. They actually don't feel like they thread on very deep, so that's fine. There's a little bit of grabbing, but I'm sure if we oiled them up just a tad. Now these are not oil filled; they will not seal, so you can't oil fill them. I mean, you can, but it's just going to leak out. We're just going to put a drip in there. Go ahead and screw back on. And they feel a little crunchy, just a little bit, but maybe they just need to be worked in a little. Kind of bindy. It actually sounds, you can hear a seal. I don't know if you can hear that. Do you hear that? Weird. All right, well, we're going to mess with them a little bit, and we'll get back at you. Alrighty, we got them all together. And I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence. I'm going to be honest. I do like that they're trying to use the stock mounts, you know, the stock uppers and lowers, and even the stock shock shaft. But I don't know, I guess it's the shock shaft going into a brass tube versus going into a plastic tube, but it feels kind of bindy. You can see it pushes in the brass tube before the shock shaft, right? So you're going into that housing, and then the shock shaft and the brass tube are just kind of bound together until it hits, and then it kind of has this break point. And you can feel it. It's not perfectly smooth. Like, see that? And maybe they just need to be worked in. They did feel like they were getting better. When I first put them together, it was pretty bad. We'll see, that one's still pretty tight. Maybe they need grease. Maybe, I mean, I did put a little bit of oil in there. Maybe they need you need to polish. Ideally, you don't want to have to, but maybe, I mean, polishing it would probably help if you polish the shock shaft. That one's real tight. Some of them are real smooth though, so I don't. I'll see how it's still binding too. I mean, it's pretty smooth. You can see it move in and out, but it's always pushing the brass in first, because the brass and the shock shaft are what's binding. Except, well, there's this one. There's one. It's the only one where it's doing the shock shaft into the brass first. Well, it just kind of depends on how you're holding it, I guess, because if you put any kind of angle on them, right, if you twist it, it's going to bind. If you twist it, it's going to bind. Like, not twist, sorry, but twist like this. Bend it. And that's natural. I mean, you want the shocks to be having as much straight compression as possible as soon as you start to bind them. Like if you lay the shocks down real heavily on your chassis, let's use this chassis as an example. If you've got your shock in there and you're straight up and down, you're going to have a lot less binding than if you go like this, right? If you go like that, now you've got weight pushing up this way, which will cause it to bind a little bit more. So that's with any kind of shock, but it's even more prevalent in the double barrels or the extended shocks or telescoping shocks. It's going to be even more because you have 2 points of binding, right? You have the shaft into the sleeve and the sleeve into the outer sleeve. So there's 2 points of binding there. I do think that they're going to get better as they kind of get worked in a little. And again, I think there's some things you could do to make them even better, more smooth. Polishing that out would help quite a bit. But it's still kind of sticky, right? Like it gets stuck when you full extend. It gets, I don't know what that's about. Maybe we can reopen them back up and take a look, but do not know. I mean, there's nothing crazy going on that shock shaft, right? Like it's smooth. There's no burrs on there or scratches on the shock shaft. It's smooth. Maybe it's slightly thicker at the top here. Maybe, just from manufacturing. Maybe it's slightly bent, but that would be strange, but it could be just slightly bent. We can try a different shock shaft. Let's go ahead and pull this one out. Maybe it'll make a huge difference. It doesn't look bent. I mean, it doesn't look bent at all to me. The stock shocks, it's hard because the stock shocks are so smooth. But again, you're metal going into plastic. And they're a single stage, right? They're only rubbing, and the only bind spot is right here, and they're plastic, so they feel smooth as heck. But let's see if it makes a difference. I'll see it. That feels even more bindy. I don't know. Maybe a little better. I don't know. We won't know until we get it all together.
A few moments later.
Maybe a little better, but not much. Sorry, Nexx. I'm kind of on the fence with these. I kind of almost wonder why not just... I guess they're trying to minimize parts cost, but let's see. These conversion kits are $18, which seems a little high. And again, maybe they were early to the game. I don't remember if these came out super early compared to some of the other options, so they might have been the first option for double barrels. And if that's the case, I understand. But at this point, you've got Enjoras and, RC Lions and Benedict Harry's and just a bunch of other like Chinese knockoff type brands, and they're full shocks, and they're anywhere between $17 and $21, and it's a full complete shock kit, not just the conversion, so you don't even need the stock. And it's hard to say if they're going to be better than these. I do like that you get an extra set of springs so you can change your stiffness. That is nice. And I mean, if you were real crazy, you could kind of run a droop setup using your stock spring, right? Pop these springs out, use a stock spring, it'll kind of naturally droop to that stock height, but then you'll have more flex or articulation. It just will be not sprung. You have a loose spring in there when you're articulating, but that's an option. So that's kind of nice. Yeah, just price wise and compared to the other ones, I don't know. I don't hate them. I do feel like there's a little too much binding between the shaft and the brass inner. But again, that may work itself out over time. Because when I first put them together, they were very tight, and they're slowly feeling better. So maybe I just need to give them some time. But again, they're about the same price as a full set, fully built shock set. So I don't know. The 0.45 versus the 0.4 is actually the spring diameter. So we have the 0.45s on, and then these ones are the 0.40s. Okay. So if you want them less stiff, use the 0.4s. If you want them more stiff, use the 0.45s. These end up with a 43 millimeter total length, which is pretty much the standard for double barrels. And it compresses down to 22, 23, which is nice. That's a pretty good low, pretty big differential between fully extended and fully compressed. I think the trials are 43 millimeters and they compress down to 24, so you get an extra millimeter out of it basically. But again, a complete set of trials is $27. So you're actually almost paying $10 more, but it's a complete shock, not just a conversion kit. So again, I apologize, Nexx, but I don't know if these are a hit, especially at that price point. If these were like $12 or $10 even, I could see them as a pretty viable option for people doing budget builds. But at $18, where I can buy a complete set of all built aluminum housing, I dislike that price point in that regard. Anyway, just wanted to do a quick one to show these, and I'm kind of rambling, but I feel bad. I love Nexx's stuff. I've been super happy with everything Nexx has, but these are, I would give them like a 6 out of 10. If the price point came down, that rating would definitely go up, because again, it's all about price, right? If these were $5, you'd be like, they're amazing, because for $5 they would be amazing. I think at the 10 to 12 range, they would be good for what they are, what you're trying to do. I think they would sell better. At the $18 range, it just doesn't make sense to me when I can get other completed kits. And then the top of the line trials for $27. I don't know. We're going to try something. We're going to hold the brass part and just kind of give ourselves a little bit of Dremel speed here. Maybe it'll work this a little bit better. Ooh, it's getting warm. Remember, you don't want to mar these up at all. It's just it's getting hot. But you don't want to mar them up. That may have done something. Alright guys, so I went ahead and did the Dremel on the shaft into the brass sleeve and just kind of pulled on it. I pulled the brass and the shaft apart while I was Dremeling, just to put a little bit of pressure on there and kind of let it kind of wear in a little bit, I guess. Just kind of put some artificial wear on there, and they smoothed up a lot. You can see they're not like binding up and clicking. Before they were clicking. That's the spring rubbing on there if you can hear anything. But before you can see the shaft is going into the brass first there. It just kind of depends on how it catches. But it's much more equal in which one goes in first, whether it's the brass into the housing or the shaft into the brass. It's not just always the brass into the housing and then the shaft clicks in. I mean, they are all much, much better. I initially said that I would give these a 6 out of 10. After wearing them in a little bit, using the Dremel, like I said, just spinning the shaft inside the brass sleeve, I would give them an 8 now. They are much better, much more smooth. They can still bind, right? Like if you're putting pressure on them, they'll still bind. But again, that's every double barrel pretty much out there. So, yep. They are better when you work them a little bit. It takes a little bit of finesse, and you can get them better. Alrighty, guys. Like, subscribe, share. Comment down below. What are your thoughts? Have you used these? Or even other brands? Or some other brands I think that have conversion kits. And if so, let me know in the comments below. See you next time.